everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger, and you found me here probably more than you ever wanted to today. This is pod number 4 of the day, I think, if I'm keeping track. Lots and lots to cover going on with the Seahawks today. We'll break down all the news for you. We will do Patron questions as we always do for our folks over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. We will talk about a Bills game. There's actually a game happening this week that we will probably have to spend a little bit of time on, and we'll give you predictions for that. So a bunch to get to. But before I do that, let me bring in two of the best and brightest. And I'll start with Dayna O'Gorman, because Dayna at Dayna OG on Twitter, you've been traveling, so we haven't had a chance to see you for a little bit. How's life? How you doing, Dayna?
It's been really fun. We've gotten to go on a couple of trips, got to go to Maine to go leaf peeping like the old people do. It's so fun. There's so many microbrews in Maine. I had no idea, but I'm pretty sure stopped at all of them. So yeah, we had a great time. It was super fun, but I've missed chatting about Seattle and the Seahawks. So I'm excited to be back.
Well, I know everyone's been missing your thoughts and personality on this show. Like they can only take so much of me, that's for sure. And we also get Nathan Ernst at Nathan E11. Nathan, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing okay. I've recovered from a bit of a cold thing, so but feeling better now. But yeah, I'm doing all right. How about you? How are you doing, Brian?
You know, I'm doing well. I for whatever reason, last night was one of those nights where, my eyes popped open at like 3:30, 3:45 and never quite got back to bed. And so I'm ready to go it's 6 o'clock now. Like I could climb into bed and fall asleep, no problem right now. But I'm going to make it to at least 8:30, I think, tonight, probably be my bedtime, and we'll see. And then tomorrow morning, it gives me a reason to promo. Some of the people, at least 2 of the people that deserve the most, that have to be the happiest today, most recognition, Griffin Sturgeon, See Mike Spin Move, Maddie Brown of the Seattle Overload podcast have been very consistent in their evaluation of the linebacker situation for the Seahawks and about the need to make these moves. And so I worked it out. I was going to try to get him on for tonight. He couldn't come on tonight. He's going to come on with me tomorrow morning at 7:15 a.m. So Hawk Blogger mornings will be early in the morning, but he and I are both early birds, so it'll be great. So
you're gonna have a couple
early to bed, early
energy,
to rise.
High energy pods. You're going to be a little sleepy tonight. Imagine Griffin might be a little sleepy at 7:15 in the morning, but
I think you're going to wish I'm sleepy tonight. I'm super enthusiastic about everything going on. So wide awake. So let me recap for folks that are just tuning in and have not kept up with everything going on. There's a lot that happened. You guys check me on this if there's things that I miss. So big news of the day, Seahawks trade Jerome Baker, one starting linebacker, for Earnest Jones, the 4th, another starting linebacker. They include a 4th-round pick in the trade, so it's Jerome Baker and a 4th-round pick going to Tennessee for Earnest Jones. It's 24, almost 25-year-old middle linebacker. We also have heard from Mike McDonald that Earnest Jones will be the new middle linebacker for the Seahawks. Tyrell Dodson will move over to the weak side linebacker position. So that's news. We heard that Tyrell Dodson will continue to wear the green dot, so he will continue to call the plays, even though Earnest Jones, I think that might be temporary is my guess, but we'll see. That is the news of the day. So that's one piece. We also found out that Abe Lucas, he does exist. I know people in our chat say that he's a figment of my imagination. He does exist. I have video evidence. I posted it. It felt so good to be able to post that today. He and George Fant were designated to return. Abe Lucas from PUP, George Fant from IR. They were back at practice today. They practice in limited capacity. It opens up a window for Abe Lucas, 21 days, to where he has to then at that point either return to the active roster or revert for the rest of the season to IR. Coach McDonald today said they are targeting the 49ers game for when he would come back. That would be the week after the bye. We're not done. What else happened? The Seahawks put Stone Forsythe on IR today. And in a corresponding move, they claimed a player who I have to look back up his name. I think it's Josh something from the Ravens, who was a linebacker that played for Mike McDonald at Michigan. His name is, I think it's Josh Ross. Josh Ross. And also was a special teams player for the Ravens. So the Seahawks placed a waiver claim on Josh Ross, not John Ross. I'm sure we'll all make that mistake. Josh Ross. And they put Stone Forsythe on IR in a corresponding move. Did I miss anything?
I think that's about it.
We're done. We're done. That's all.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night. Woo. So yeah, I'm going to start with you, Nathan. I'm really curious. Let's obviously start with the Earnest Jones news. That's the headline story. What was your reaction when you heard the news, and what has been kind of your evaluation of Earnest Jones as I've seen you posting clips and kind of thinking about him in a Seahawks uniform?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. This is a guy that, pretty well regarded, was a big deal when the Rams decided to trade him. And, people really felt like they kind of gave him away for nothing. So, immediate reaction was excitement. There's a lot of interesting things about this trade, including Baker in it is pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The cost compared to what the Titans had to pay, and if you kind of look at John's offseason with trades, it's a little dicey, I'd say. But they're going for it, which is exciting. They didn't pay much, and they got somebody who could potentially be a difference maker for them. So I think it's pretty awesome. I'm excited to see how. The other thing is, I guess for me, is I've watched a lot of, and we can probably talk more about this, I guess, with the Falcons game and everything. But I've tried to figure out how Seattle is asking their linebackers and their front seven to play the run, and I really struggle with it. Like I watch a lot of plays, and I'm like, they're just losing on alignment on like 90% of their plays, and so I think Baker had really tough moments, especially against the Falcons, and has throughout the season. I'm also really curious to see like how much of this really is talent. What does Jones do that much differently that solves some of the issues that they've had in the run defense? I'm not super optimistic that one guy is going to come in and make a huge difference, but I'm excited to learn, I guess.
Interesting. You mentioned the trade difference compensation. Do you remember what the Rams trade was to the Titans for Earnest Jones?
It was a fifth, wasn't it?
Yeah, they got a fifth for the Titans' sixth.
Even just
vice
swap.
It was a swap. Like I think it was 1 round swap, and so there's a lot of Rams fans that are very upset about their front office, and they're like, if this was available before, like what are we doing here? I got some more news on that front I'll share. I did some digging around because I had questions, but before I do, Dayna, even before we talk about Earnest Jones, I'm going to talk to you about that.
Okay.
I haven't got to talk to you about the Seahawks, and they just won this game against the Falcons.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to watch that game? What was your kind of feeling about the Seahawks after the 3-game losing streak, and then seeing that Falcons win?
I had to watch it after I was on a plane, and that didn't have Wi-Fi. What plane doesn't have Wi-Fi anymore? I was really irritated about that. But so I had to watch it after. So luckily I was able to check the score every once in a while. And so I knew they had won. So when I have the score beforehand, I can look at it a little more objectively instead of just that, oh God, every moment, you're so worried. But it was interesting. What I wanted from this Falcons game, I just also got the win on top of it. I felt like what I wanted to see from the Falcons game was regression back to the way that they were playing at the beginning of the year, but also progress, right? Like we were figuring out what the woes were quicker, adjusting quicker, and you got all of that in this game. And so it was really exciting for me on that aspect to really be able to sit down and really focus on those things and say, oh no, yep, they picked that up better. Oh no, they're faster at that. And the Falcons team is, I mean, it's not like some throwaway team. They'd won 3 in a row. They were playing well. Kirk Cousins is no slacker, right? Like he's a good quarterback. And so it was exciting. But what I did love, and I want to thank the Patreons for this, the minute the defense scoop and scored, my name exploded in Slack. They're like, Dayna, and I appreciate that so much because I did see that. So it was great. But yeah, it was a deep, relaxing breath. Like, okay, we do know how to move forward. We weren't just really good because we were playing bad teams. So that was exciting.
So then when you heard this Earnest Jones news today, what was your reaction?
So it was kind of mixed. The first thing I did was look up his stats from this year, and I was like, why are we all excited? Like I wasn't, I'm like, it's not all that great. But then you dig deeper, and the reactions from the Rams fans made it even a little sweeter. I'm not going to lie. But I was excited that we have been screaming about linebacker since the offseason, right? Like we knew that was a huge issue. They were trying, man. They were trying. And when they're like, this isn't working, swap it out. That was nice, right? We hadn't seen that for a while. It's not like the last few years we're like, no, we're going to make this work, damn it, right? And they seem to try and force it down their throat. So I was excited about that. I was excited about the possibility that he brought, not just a new player, a more athletic player, that sort of thing, but also the fact that he's played in the NFC West. He understands what it takes to play here and to play against these teams. He's familiar with all of the teams, including Seattle, but he's familiar with the Niners. He's familiar with the Rams and the Cardinals. I think that hasn't maybe not been talked about enough, that unless you talked about it, Brian, on your show earlier, sorry. But I think that that knowledge is a huge help. The fact that they get to play the Bills 2 weeks in a row is not so bad either. I think that's pretty good. But I was excited. I'm ready to see them change it. But I was excited that they saw they needed to change it up. And they've done it a couple of times now. And that's not something we had always seen a lot in the past.
Yeah, it's interesting, Nathan. You talked about John making the moves, and that hasn't always been a good thing. And we've often gotten ourselves excited and convinced Quentin Dunbar is going to be this great move that they made, or you can name a bunch of guys that maybe that you thought were going to be these big game changers, and it didn't end up being the case. And that, in addition to the fact, my initial reaction was excitement because I'm a Seahawks fan and I want to see them make moves to get better. But then why is this guy getting traded twice in less than a year? And what skeletons does he have in his closet? What don't we know about the person? Not the player, but the person, and what's going on there. So I went out, talked to a number of folks that associated with the Rams organization, that have been in the locker room with him, that know this person, from both the Titans and the Rams. And every single thing I got back was great guy, great player, great person, great leader. And that no one said the smoking gun of exactly why, but there was a few different triangulation points about the reason the Rams moved on. They didn't want to pay him, and they specifically don't want to pay that position. That position that they have a different organizational value and they don't want to pay, which makes sense. There's a lot of teams that don't want to pay middle linebacker. And in fact, the Seahawks have just recently, in the last few years, Nathan, you and I, it wasn't that long ago, we were saying we should trade Bobby Wagner. This is like 2017 or 19 or whatever it was. We were like, don't pay this guy $19 million. It's not the right thing to do, even though we loved Bobby. And then the Titans, the best that I've heard, and I don't have as much triangulation there, is their window's just not now. And so they were going to have to pay this guy top dollar. And the reality is they might be 3 years away, at least 2 years away from being an interesting team. Now's not the time to be handing out big free agent contracts. And so that was, given that plus the fact that they could get a 4th round pick in return to help their build, made sense. But they also, people were surprised and not thrilled to see this guy leave, and continued to make the point that he made a difference in the locker room. So now I'm starting to say, okay, breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief of, okay, the person's good. the tape sure seems to look good as well. I'm curious, Nathan, if you've been seeing some of the clips I've been seeing out there about what he offers as a blitzer, as a coverage player, as a run defender. I'm curious what your assessment is there.
I haven't watched a ton, but like he is a complete player. Like the highlights are like you're saying, everything from his ability to just completely steamroll a center on a blitz to, you know, doing cool stuff, dropping back and in zone and things like that too. So yeah, I mean, like by all accounts, he's very good on the field. It's I guess the one thing that's weird to me is just, and maybe it's a positional thing, but in both cases, he's not even 25, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, what are the Rams? Like, there's talk that they may be looking at trading Cooper Kupp, and you know, so like, where is their money going to be going? Like, this guy is a guy that can be good, should be good 3-4 years from now when you should be trying to win again, right? Like, NFL reloads typically can happen fairly quickly, right? I mean, it's typically about getting that quarterback. So it's just strange to me that both of these teams are like, yeah, this guy could be good for another 4 or 5 years, but we'd rather have a 4th round pick. That's still odd.
Do you think that part of it may be this? There's a portion of the league or a portion of analysts that think the inside linebacker position is just a high variance role. You can't be consistently good year to year, that it's become so hard to play that position that there's really, unless you're Fred Warner or Roquan Smith, like there's probably just a handful of guys that are going to consistently be good year in, year out. And so it doesn't matter. We're not going to pay meaningful dollars. We're going to go back to the bank in the draft and we're going to put new guys out there. And is that a possible reason?
I mean, I'm not going to say that I've been like super closely tracking how the aging curves of or the how static middle linebacker performances year to year. I feel like that's not really true though. Like I feel like middle linebackers are typically like, you still got like the Mario Davis out there playing really well. Like, and now he was great. Like, so maybe
David.
Yeah. So maybe these top end guys just age better, but I don't feel like, I feel like middle linebacker is actually a pretty steady position that like these guys are usually good kind of year in, year out. And like, I'm trying to think of the boomer bust linebackers, but I guess it's hard to, like, for that position, once you kind of know their name, then they're so well established. It's not like a receiver that can just kind of come out of nowhere and have a good year and then disappear again once the team, you know, gets other weapons or isn't terrible. So no, I wouldn't think that, but maybe I'm wrong.
Dayna, I made the observation a couple times today, and I actually asked Mike McDonald about it. Like, it was 8 games into his tenure with the Ravens as a defensive coordinator that they traded for Roquan Smith. And then 7 games into his tenure, you know, his time here at Seattle, he makes a trade for Earnest Jones. I don't think it's the same situation or the same player or anything like that, but it is interesting that it's the same position. 2 times. What do you make of that?
I think that he really likes a good linebacker. I make out of it. I think that he seems like the type of guy, and you could speak to this, you know, having been, you know, so close to him, but he needs to evaluate. He's really got to think it over. He's really got to be in the mix of it, right? And then he goes and finds, before he can say, this is exactly what I need. This is the spot we need it in. And so I think that it's nice that he has the ability and that he's been given the ability to go out and get these players. But I think more than anything, what it comes down to is that he knows what he's looking for. He has to see if he has it. He doesn't have it. He goes and gets it. And that's very refreshing. I want to comment on 2 things though. You said something about him, you know, being a good leader in the locker room. And I actually reached out to a friend of mine too. And he said the exact same thing, that there's that leadership role there. The interesting thing about it though, because at first I was like, what is going on? You know, but it was great. The leadership, I think that is hugely needed in this locker room. And so I am excited to get someone who's not afraid of leading and who is willing to lead in there. I think that is going to be very helpful. And I know you guys have talked about that to death. I've talked about it to death, but I'm excited about hearing that about him. The other thing to mention, what you were talking about before, I'm really curious how much money he has been hinting that he wants, or his agent. is it an insane number? Is it a number that they're like, we're not going below it and don't even bother talking to us if you're going to? Because if that's the case, that is going to scare off a front office more than anything else, I think. But it makes you then wonder if Seattle knows that. And from what I've been reading and hearing today, they don't see this as a half-season rental. It'll be interesting if Seattle is not afraid of the number that maybe has been thrown around a little bit.
I would be shocked if they traded a 4th round pick and did not
For a
re-sign him.
half-season rental. I agree.
I would be. Nathan, you disagree?
I mean, we've seen them do it with the 2nd round pick.
To remind me.
Sheldon Richardson.
Sure.
And Clowney too. What was Clowney? Clowney with the 3rd?
Oh, why do we have to keep saying his name? I don't even like it.
I don't know why you have such a strong reaction to
Because
anyway,
it's funny.
yeah, I mean, Clowney was not that high.
No, he wasn't second, but he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It seems to me like that would have to be a situation where they decided after spending time that he was not the right fit. So I guess it is possible that they'll find that out. It would seem surprising to me that they would do that here, especially also considering that this is a guy that Mike McDonald said today he noticed in the Super Bowl a few years ago, and then he's been playing for a defensive coordinator who worked under Mike McDonald in the same scheme. Mike McDonald's mentioned that he's noticed him since that game, and whatever. It seems like he's here and they're giving him the Mike position. They're moving Tyrel Dodson over. It seems like they're making this move with the intent to pay. And you were kind of giving the wry smile because they might just give away this 4th round pick, and that would be bad. I would say the other thing could be equally bad, which is feeling that they have to sign him to whatever money that, Dayna's that. They've done that too. They've done that more often, and that hasn't been good. So I don't know that I believe that Earnest Jones is a $15 million a year linebacker. And if that's what he's asking for, we'll see. But the other thing that I guess that caught my attention when Dayna was talking about the leadership thing is specifically in the linebacker room. I actually think that the defensive line has leaders in there that people respond to. I think the secondary has leaders that they respond to. Tyrel Dodson has said he's told me that he actually has looked to Jerome Baker at times. He wanted the veteran, he's new to starting. And I wonder if part of the story here was they kind of evaluated what was going on. They're like, I don't know if I want Tyrese Knight, Tyrel Dodson, Drake Thomas looking to Jerome Baker for guidance. And I don't think it's just that simple, but I think they might have said, to your point, Dayna, let's get someone in there that is known to be a great leader and a great part of that room. This is a guy that Aaron Donald said, this is Earnest Jones' team now. That was his comment retiring, was this is Earnest Jones' team. I think that says a lot. So interesting stuff there. We could obviously keep talking about the Earnest Jones thing. So if you haven't given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. Let's move on briefly to talk about Abe Lucas, and we could talk about George Fanta a little bit, but really it's an Abe Lucas conversation for a second. Do you believe that he exists now? Yeah, Nathan, you want to start?
No, I don't believe he exists. I'll believe he exists when I see him on a football field. And then I'll wait a little longer to see how he plays, and if he's playing like a figment of imagination out there and just letting people right on through, then he still doesn't exist. I'm a long ways off from caring at all about Abe Lucas.
Interesting. So no reaction from Nathan, the stoic Nathan.
I mean, I will say it's great. It's awesome to see him come off the pup, because I wasn't even sure that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But no, he's not real yet.
Dayna, did you have any reaction? Did it elicit any response from you when you heard that he was coming off of PUP?
I was like, my comment was in our chat. I was like, huh, okay. Because honestly, he's as real as the cap is. So here's the thing with it, though. I think that what it does show is that they were willing to wait the time needed for him to come back 100%, which means the team truly believes in him. If they thought they could band-aid him and throw him back out there and it didn't matter if he was good for next year, they would have done it. But obviously they wanted to take the time. They want to get him right. Now, I had said before, I was on a podcast earlier today, and I was talking about how I didn't expect him back till December. Even if he came back, that then it would be maybe right around that Thanksgiving mark, maybe even, just a little further. But then it sounds like today they expect him to come back for the Niners game after the bye week. I wonder if I would think it would take him a little longer to get physically fit enough, back in the game, get your feet back in the dirt for that to happen. But maybe he's further along than we thought. And they really were just waiting for the perfect timing or something to happen to bring this so-called player back.
I will tell you guys, if Abe Lucas is a player that they put in a hermetically sealed container and they just unwrap him, expose him, and like reanimate him for the games against the 49ers, and he helps you beat them, and then they put him back in the package, he's a valuable player. I will take that 100%. So this has been in the back of my mind when I said I thought even after that loss to the 49ers, I think the Seahawks are going to go in there to San Francisco, and I think they're going to take the soul of the 49ers organization by beating them down there. And everyone's like laughing. And people are still probably laughing at that. Part of it in my head is you put Abe Lucas at right tackle, and I think it's a different situation going against that team. I'm telling you, if you saw the video I posted, watching him walk on the field, not only does he exist, but that guy is a unit. Like, he is a significantly different physical specimen than anyone else. Different than, George Fant's a huge human, but he's not the athlete that Abe Lucas is. And as much as I love Mike Jarrell and the Mike Jarrell story, he looks like he could be like, what's the thing that fits inside of the guy during what's that Arnold
Train? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Grotto or whatever, like the guy in the science fiction show that comes out of his stomach. What is not Running Man? I don't know. Whatever. I'm blowing it. But he looks like he is a small person next to Abe Lucas. And so I really do feel like him coming back, this is stage one of the Seahawks fan base, like coming back to the belief that this guy could be a part of the team. Stage two will him being, actually being activated. Stage three will him being on the field. Stage four will him playing well. Stage five, the final moment of actualization, will be when he stays on the field.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I understand those stages. I am projecting that we're going to get through at least 4 of those stages. Whether he stays on the field, I have no way to know. I don't think anybody has any way to know. But I think he is going to be a real difference maker when he does get back on the field.
Yeah, the two things that I'm really interested to see is, like, one, just like being big and being strong and running fast in a straight line is all fine. But if you have a degenerative knee, like a bad knee or a degenerative knee thing, his ability to get out there and like do all the weird twisty stuff that you have to do to block a defensive lineman, that's a huge test. And then, the next thing is, how does his knee respond after he does that, for an entire game? Can he get back, the next week and be right? So, just getting out there at all, getting on the field, being able to actually play football and make football moves, which we don't really think of offensive linemen making football moves, but there's still all kinds of like body contortions and people falling into you and weird stuff that happens. Mm-hmm. And then just his knee being able to respond and keep him out there week after week.
Can I ask you guys a question? How much better does it make you feel, though, knowing that Jarrell played well? He's not the same player. We get it. He's a rookie. He makes rookie mistakes. But if they have to kind of pace Lucas back, or maybe he doesn't respond as well, it makes me feel better to know that at least you can throw Jarrell out there and it's not a disaster.
I think the really scary thing is just right now there's nobody behind him.
Right.
It's like the next few weeks until once Lucas is back, once Fant is back. But right now they're in a really, I don't know who their backup right tackle is. Is it?
Well, it's Jalen Sindell.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that was a 1 week thing. My guess is this week, if Fant is not activated, which I'm not sure he will be in terms of being active for the game, I wouldn't be surprised if Jason Peters is brought up from the practice squad to be a backup. I don't think he would start.
Now, Jason Peters, is he a large man? What kind of shape of a man is Jason Peters?
He's so big, and he so clearly doesn't move the way an NFL player moves. It would be a bad thing if he is at right tackle.
He's like 45 or something now.
he's-
He started for them last year, didn't he?
I know he did, and it was not a great situation. It was not great. But here, like, I would just say this, like, Abe Lucas is first of all, we don't know exactly what the injury was. There's a lot of things that have been speculated. Once we get to talk to Abe Lucas, I'm sure that will probably come out. Greg Bell tried to ask about it again today, and Mike McDonald, I'm a little proud of Mike McDonald. He's getting a little bit more savvy about how to act stupid about, I think he knows exactly what went on with Abe Lucas's knee. And he's like, I don't know this medical jargon. Like, okay, Mike. So we still don't know. I've heard rumors, but I'm not going to spread them because I just don't know for sure. But whatever it is, if it's we've landed on this idea that it's chronic. Brady Henderson, his sources, which have been the most accurate so far, have been that it is not chronic, that it is actually something that Pete used that word and it got everybody off on that tangent, but it's not. And that their perspective is all along has been he is going to be back and stay back, but they're being cautious with him. That's been what he's heard. That's what he's reported multiple times. And so I just think there's like these HIPAA laws, if people have heard about them. And if the player doesn't want, or the player and agent don't want or allow the team to talk about the injury, they can't. And so that might be at play here where they've like, I don't want it out what this injury was. And I don't know. So it is a little bit weird. It's clouded in mystery, but based on what we do know, or at least what's been reported, I think there's reason to be hopeful here. I think it's safe to be hopeful. It's not safe to count on him. I think those are two different things.
It's never safe to be hopeful. Hoping only leads to getting your to getting hurt.
Hope is the whole reason this show exists. I mean, we have been this has been a little glimmering light in the darkness of the last 8 years that's kept me like engaged in this team. Dayna, we should get to Patron questions here in a bit. So if you haven't already, go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, sign up, get access to the Slack channel where you too can ask us questions every single week. And if you enjoy chat, Slack is great because it just keeps going even when we're not doing the show. And there's a lot of good people in there, and they keep it kind and friendly in there as well. And if they don't, then they hear from me about it. So it's a great place to be, and we appreciate your support. So Dayna, what questions do we have from Patreon?
We have some good ones this week. All right. So Nathan, I'm going to give this one to you. If Kobe Bryant continues to play well in Jenkins' absence, is there a chance he could supplant him at safety?
Kobe Bryant is continuing to do the one thing he's ever done well, which is be extremely lucky about where he is on a football field a couple times a game or a couple times a season. No, I don't think Kobe Bryant is any kind of a long-term answer. I mean, could he beat out... Is Jenkins supposed to come back this year?
He is.
He is. Okay. I would be very surprised if he even beats out Jenkins. And he certainly isn't, I think, any kind of an answer for this team past this year. Other than he's fine backup. Like, I mean, he's not like the worst thing out there.
Mm-hmm. He was on a national television program. I think I posted that in our group chat where he did a great job. I mean, he was like out there and he's like chatting with everybody, and they were asking him about his name and all that stuff, and he loves his name. But it was really, I came across it. I'm like, wait, Kobe Bryant? Like, I was surprised that he was on a national level show, but they sure were excited to chat with him. So that was nice. All right, Brian, is this team an above average O-line away from making real noise? Now, the first question was from Hawks fan Matt Man. This one is from Zach.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes. That's what I believe to be the case. I think that you could have before today said the Seahawks defensive line is top 5 in the NFL. I believe that when healthy, I think they are top 5 in the NFL. I'm including the edge players in that. I'm including, the defensive tackles. And they're also generally young. Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy's 22. I mean, people forget how young he is. And then in the secondary, you've got Reek Woolen and you've got Witherspoon. You've got young, growing, talented players. Julian Love, who's under contract and playing really well this year. But the linebacker position was a question. So now I think you've made the biggest upgrade you could probably make at that position. There's reason to think that this defense will figure it out this year, as long as they can stay on the field together. And then offensively, it's been a good offense. It's been a top 10 offense with awful offensive line play. When and if Geno Smith and Kenneth Walker can actually play behind an above average offensive line, this becomes easily a top 5 offense. And if you have a top 5 offense and a top 10 defense, yeah, you're going to be a pretty interesting team.
Cool. All right. Good answer. That makes me happy. All right. This one is from Mark. Okay. I want you both to answer this one. Hypothetical. Tampa offers you a second next year for JSN. Do you take it? Would you give up on him for a first? What about Tyler Lockett for a second or a third? Nathan first.
Lockett for a second, I do in a heartbeat. JSN for a first is very tempting. But no, I don't think I would want to trade him for a second. I feel like it's you just end up now having something to replace. And are you going to get something better with second? Maybe. I mean, like these receiver drafts are super deep, but no, I don't think it makes sense to do that.
Here's the thing. I got 2 very strong reactions to this. One is, where is this JSN hate coming from? I don't understand. Like, people are like, I've been asked by not just fans, but others. Like, I was asked last night on Fox by Aaron Levine, like, should we be thinking JSN's a disappointment? And I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, I think, is he as good as he's going to be? No. Has he already shown what he's capable of being? Yes. Like, he's going to be fine. What he isn't is he's not a dynamic athlete. He's not a DK Metcalf. He's not going to take the top off. And it is clear if DK Metcalf, that, by the way, is news that we missed. Mike McDonald said DK Metcalf may play this week, and that he doesn't have to practice in order to be eligible to play. They could take him all the way up to the game. But it is clear that with DK Metcalf out, there's nobody to take the top off in the receiver corps. As good as I think the receiver corps is, that is something that DK does and nobody else does. So if JSN's not going to be that guy, you do need some other players, especially if DK, for whatever reason, doesn't come back, like if they don't keep him. But I think they will. The other strong reaction I have is, where are people getting these draft compensation concepts for receivers? Like Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper just were traded for 3rd-round picks. And it's not just fans. The Rams seem to think they can get a 2nd-round pick for Cooper Kupp, who's like 31 years old and played like 1 game in 2 years. What? Like, right. who like, and by the way, the Chiefs were like, no, thank you. We'll trade a 5th for DeAndre Hopkins and we'll be just happy about it. So Tyler Lockett in no world is getting you a 2nd-round pick. Tyler Lockett probably in no world is getting you even a 5th-round pick, maybe, like at this stage. And then JSN second is possible, but just keep in mind, this position is plentiful every year in the draft. I don't think people are looking to trade for 2nd-year receivers, really. And I don't think the Seahawks should be looking to trade a 2nd-year receiver.
No, I agree. And besides, honestly, at this point, Tyler is probably going to retire in the next, year or 2. So what's he going to do? It's like, oh, trade me, but then I'm just retiring. So what's the point? No team's going to want him for that. That just seems crazy. And we have to remember Devontae Adams, he's, Aaron Rodgers was a whoopee. Aaron Rodgers wanted his little whoopee back. And so they had to go out and get him, and they did. So, it didn't seem to make much of a difference. But yeah, I think that's great. I wouldn't trade. And the DK, it's like, oh, trade DK. Nope. I won't keep them all. Keeping them all. That's for sure. All right. Next one. Let's see. This one is from Jason. Oh, this is a good question. Nathan, if we had lost on Sunday to Atlanta, does John still do the Earnest Jones trade this week?
I would think so. I don't think they're. I mean, he's young. Jones is. I don't think that they want this to be a disaster season. I think they want. I mean, they clearly they went into the season talking about how it's a contender. Like they feel good about the team. You know, you want to set Mike up well in his first year. This offense is, you know, talented enough to be a successful team. So I think that they would still push, regardless of what had happened against Atlanta.
The correct answer is that he'd just have given a first round pick instead of a fourth round pick because he would have been that much more desperate.
Yeah, extra desperate.
Extra desperate. All right. So this one. Brian, this one is for you from Hawksfan Matt Man. Wondering how Brian feels about John Schneider attending the Texas-Georgia game to watch his favorite quarterback prospect, Brian's favorite quarterback prospect, Quinn. Is it Ewers? Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
Ewers had a pretty bad game, but maybe John is thinking, maybe he'll end up falling to us later in the draft.
I'm so happy John went and watched that absolutely non-prospect quarterback fall on his face and play an awful game. I don't know if you guys heard, if you haven't, John Hankins has a great podcast, his own YouTube channel, and he had Byron Murphy on yesterday, or at least it was posted yesterday. And John Hankins asked Byron Murphy about Quinn Ewers, and he's like, oh yeah, he's good. He'll probably get the job back, when he gets healthy. But when you heard him talk about Arch Manning, he's like, that dude, that's a dude. It was so clear that even the people in that room know the difference between good college and good, this guy's special. Anyone that thinks Quinn Ewers is special is just because it's relative. They're looking around at the quarterbacks in college right now, and they're like, well, he doesn't absolutely make you want to claw your eyes out. Let's spend a first round pick on him. He's not the guy. And so, yeah, I'm very glad that John hopefully got all the confirmation of that necessary.
All right. This one is from Brendan. With the moves that have come on the front seven in the past week, it seems clear that Mike has evaluated where the D is at and identified opportunities for improvement. Do the recent moves and the improving help change your expectations for this defense at all? Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, they have to. They're going out and acquiring players that they ostensibly like, and Jones is a big name. And so if you're going to add talent and depth to, I mean, I guess they're not really adding depth with the Jones thing because they got rid of Baker. But if you're going to go out and add players you like, you have to think that it's going to get better. That said, I do think that the defensive performance against Atlanta was a bit of a mirage. I think that there's still big issues there. I don't think that they suddenly solved everything that we'd seen the previous 3 weeks. So I'm really not sure just what to expect from this team going forward, because like I said, I don't know how much of it was a talent issue. And so it'll be interesting to see what Jones can do for this defense, and if he makes it look like Baker was really just that terrible, or if we start to see that maybe there's some cracks in Mike's defense.
I think it's the tweaking that's fascinating to me, right? Like the tweaking and the moving, because we knew it was going to take at least a year for everything to settle in, probably even maybe for another full year, but you can already see them trying to tweak it a little bit. And I think that that's really fascinating for someone who likes defense, because you can just see this little move. And it's got rid of a player, got another one. What difference is that going to make? How is it going to shift? So we can see how that tweak happens just a little bit. I'm excited for that.
You know what's cool about that? I think it's a great observation, Dayna, is I think in not just the Earnest Jones move, but in the Roy Robertson Harris move, it's not just the players they acquired, it's the effect on other players. And moving Tyrell Dodson to weak side linebacker could make him a better player. And having Earnest Jones as a leader in the room could make him a better player. Having Roy Robertson Harris means that, I was talking to Byron Murphy today. He's like, that dude is big and strong. Dre Jones is he's 6'8". I don't know what that guy, those guys. Dre Jones gets to move back to the position he trained to play this offseason. He had his best game against Atlanta. So I think you're right. They're looking at not just the move, but the ripple effects of these moves.
Yeah, that domino effect can make a huge difference. All right. This one's from Mark Zuck. I'm going to give this one to Brian. How would you feel about a Jadeveon Clowney reunion? And then he says, another Clowney question. Have you seen a better Seahawks pass rush since the start of Pete era than the 2019 at the Niners game?
That was a game that will always live in Seahawks fans'
It's
dreams
true.
because it was like, oh, we finally have one of those players and we get to just be physically dominant. And that was a mirage. But I don't see them making a move for another edge player. Now, in the game of like, let's say what we were wrong about, literally last night, I told some people that asked, are they going to make any more moves? I'm like, nah, they're not going to make more moves. So what do I know? I mean, like, I'm as much of an idiot as anybody else. But why? Why would they make a move for an edge player? Boye Mafe, Derek Hall look like the best young duo at the edge going right now. Draymond Jones just had his best game, and you still have Uchenna Nwosu, who's due back this season later. I know people are now on the anti-Uchenna Nwosu because he's gotten injured too much, but this guy is like a leader in that room, a leader on that defense, and was arguably their best edge player. So I just don't see it. I don't see that that's being a place. I mean, if they're going to look for help anywhere, it would be guard.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. This one is from Hawks fan Matt Mannigan. He had a lot of questions this week. All right. Assuming that McDonald had a lot to say about Earnest Jones being a player he wanted for this defense, is it fair to think that Schneider will listen to Grubb and Huff when it comes to identifying better O-linemen than we have previously? That's a good question too. Nathan.
Will he listen to them? Yes. Will
Maybe.
he prioritize it the same way? Will he change his mind about what they're worth and how much to pay for them? Probably not. I mean, they would be the first group to have ever done that in 10, 14 years or whatever it's been. So no, I'm not hoping for any big I guess the thing that you have to hope with Grubb and Huff is that they can identify the later round guys better. Um, I don't know that those. I mean, I guess you can look at guys like Pooney and stuff like that, where we're in the range that John would spend a pick on. So yeah, I think that's what you kind of have to hope for is that they're gonna ID these guys a little later in the draft or maybe a little farther down in the free agent list that other coaching staffs haven't done as good a job on.
Awesome. All right. Then look, it says for Dayna. I love it when they do that. Thank you so much, Jess. All right. For Dayna, you have said that it takes until week 5 or 6 to really know who a team is. Now that we're past that, who are the Seahawks? Now I'm going to answer this question, but I want your guys' answer too, because I think it says a lot. My answer for this is I think they're ascending. I think this is a team that has some problems. They know where those problems lie. They might not know exactly how to fix it quite yet, but they know what the process is to get there. But I think they're ascending. This isn't a team that's a dumpster fire. This isn't the Browns. This isn't the Panthers. It's none of that. This is a team that will they make the playoffs? Who knows? Will they have a huge personnel changeover next year? Maybe. Who knows? But I think that they're figuring it out, and you can see each week, even in the 3-game slide, if we just remove the Giants game, you can see it much clearer. Just take that game out of there. But I just really feel like they're an ascending team. I think this is a team to keep an eye on. And I think we're hearing about them a lot more in national media because of this, that they're a team that is on the rise. Seattle, I'm not giving an exact, comparison, but they're like the Lions a couple of years ago. They're a team that you have to keep an eye on because they're starting to figure it out. And that's exciting, right? That's all you really want when you have a new coach. So, Brian, who are the Seahawks right now for you?
Well, let's keep it Halloween themed. I mean, we're close to that. I mean, it's like a witch's brew and a potion, and they've got a lot of interesting ingredients, but they're still adding to it, and it hasn't yet coalesced into something truly powerful. But it feels like there's a lot of interesting things there, and I actually believe that the people making it know what they need. And so I do think it's going to be an up and down kind of thing. I wish I could say they're just going to win all the rest of their games, that there won't be another streak where you're like, oh my God, this team is awful. I don't think it's going to be like that. But I'd be happy if it did, if it was. So yeah, that's kind of who I think the Seahawks are.
This makes me
Nathan?
so happy because we finally resumed our rightful roles. You are optimistic. I'm pretty guarded about this team right now. Like I didn't feel great
Right where we
watching.
belong.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not pessimistic. I'm trying to be realistic, and but I'm guarded. Like, I really am concerned that this defense is not meaningfully better. I mean, there's obviously a lot of reasons with adding the players that they've added the last week or so that they really could ascend and take off and get a lot better. But I'm just not convinced of that. I think you look at the 14 points that they give up against Atlanta and the turnovers and all that, and I don't know how much of that is repeatable and real.
Mhm.
And the offense, we see them have these games against teams like Detroit and teams like Atlanta that can really struggle with path rush, that can't exploit their huge weakness at all. And even with that, 24 points isn't exactly lighting the world on fire.
Mhm.
So I think the inconsistencies on offense don't seem solved at all to me. And I need to see this team play good defense for a week or two more before I really buy into, okay, maybe they really can be what we thought they were at the start of the
Mhm.
year. So I think they're more treading water towards 9-8 or 8-9 type record. But I would love to see Ernest Jones come in here and Roy and these guys make a huge difference and really turn this defense
Mhm.
around.
I'm
Or
not
to
sure
just
you and
be
I.
wrong.
I'm not
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure you and I actually saying different things. I
No.
predicted 10
Uh-huh.
wins at the beginning of the season. I'm not super uncomfortable with that, and I think it's harder to see them getting more wins than that than it
Uh-huh.
is to see them getting less. So I think you and I are actually in pretty similar spots.
The funny thing is I kind of agree, but I just see them as that they're starting to figure it out.
Hmm.
I picked them to have 9 wins, I think, this season. I don't expect them to even make the playoffs, but it just feels like there's something, like you said, brewing underneath the surface, where right now they're still having a lot of missteps. They're still trying to figure it out, but they're getting there just a little bit at a time. And so that's exciting for me, I think. So yeah, I think saying it in different ways, we all are kind of in the same spot, to be honest with you. All right, there's one more question left. It's from Sam Brown, but with something that we've already answered. So I just want to make sure, Sam, that we answered your question well. It says, in case it doesn't get discussed on the pod, even if Ernest Jones doesn't impact the defense the same way Roquan Smith impacted Baltimore's defense, is there a reason to believe Jones being inserted into the linebacker core will help get more out of Tyrell Dodson? And as Brian said, that's one thing that we're hoping to watch to see what happens. So I hope we
Yeah,
answered your question for you, Sam.
I
Yeah.
would say come to Hawk Blogger Mornings tomorrow morning with See Mike Spin Move Griff, and
Yeah.
you'll get some of that. I might also have Coach Cody Alexander on. We're figuring that out, so we'll talk about that a little bit more X's and O's tomorrow.
Awesome. That's it for Patreon.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. You can sign up there as well. Join the crew and get access to the Slack channel and also ask us questions every week. A couple other things before we get into this Bills game as we head towards the top or bottom of the hour. I never know which one it is. Austin Martin became a new member of the channel. So thank you, Austin, and welcome to the family. Appreciate having you. And Rick R., who has been so generous lately, gifted 10 Hawk Blogger memberships to the channel, which is so cool. It's a way to bring other people into the community. And if you're someone who got one of these free 1-month memberships, consider, if you get one, consider giving one. Pay it forward. Consider extending your membership past a month. Stay part of the crew. I think it's just a great way to bring in more kind and generous people. So I love it, and thank you, Rick. And then finally, Axel MTG has the super chat, says Double Agent Bobby Wagner trained up our new linebacker. He went down there to LA, trained Ernest Jones, and got him all ready. So that's awesome. I have something to play for you guys. So I've been doing this voicemail thing lately, and I'm going to play this for you. Let me know. Hopefully you guys can hear this.
What's up, guys? It's Chandler. Chandler from Fresno, as Evan likes to call me. Thank you so much for featuring my message on the last time you guys used these on the previous show. Made my entire night. It was so cool. So dang cool. Thank you so much for doing that. I love you guys. My question is, if you could pick a dream Super Bowl matchup right now, what would it be? The only rule is, though, you can't choose the Seahawks, because if we could choose the Seahawks, I would choose Seahawks, Jaguars in a heartbeat to get us that second ring. So you can't choose the Seahawks. And my answer, hopefully this doesn't steal someone's, Ravens and Lions. I feel like Ravens and Lions would be better than Chiefs and Lions because you don't get the whole Kansas City three-peat narrative. Ravens and Lions would be just strictly about how awesome that game is going to be and how chaotic and how many points are going to be scored. So that's my answer. I love you guys. Hope you guys are having a great night.
All right. What is your answer?
Go ahead, Nathan.
Well, I mean, I have a variety of ideas here. I would say, obviously, Chiefs out of the NFC. And then it would be very funny to see them beat the Niners in the Super Bowl again, although that would mean the Niners make the Super Bowl. So there's, pros and cons to that. Also, the idea of just gifting Andy Reid a Super Bowl, another one, picking some like the Giants. But I think my pick would be Chiefs Bears. I am not a huge Caleb Williams believer, but I would like to see him succeed. I would very much like to be wrong about him. I would love to give Brian a bunch of crap about Shane Waldron going to the Super Bowl. That would be incredibly fun. And it would just be a different thing. I mean, not the Chiefs part, but the Bears part would be pretty interesting. So I think that would probably be my pick.
Dayna?
Okay, so I was going to say Lions Chiefs, but at the same time, living in Kansas City, I can't do it again. I can't. It gets so exhausting around here when the Chiefs are in there. So I actually, when I did my picks for our turf football, I did Lions Chiefs. But I agree with our caller. The Lions Ravens would be such a good game. Like, that would be just so fun to watch, those two coaches, and like, oh, it'd be so good. The other one I just saw, it was in chat, was the Lions versus Steelers. Like, honest to God, I'm so not mad at Russ anymore. I think that would be hilarious. Like, that would just be fun. I don't know. So I think if I had a dream, it would be anyone but Kansas City or San Francisco at this point. But definitely the Lions. I want the Lions in there real bad.
It's funny. I think Lions Chiefs, just as a football fan, I would love to see that. I think
It'd be a good
fantastic game.
Mm-hmm.
But like the softy in me, like the sentimental person, would be Lions Bills. So either way, one of those fan bases gets their ring, and I think that'd be a fun game too.
That's a good one, Brian. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah,
that would be one of the ones I put out there.
So
thank you for the what's that?
Oh, sorry. Is there a team you said Steelers? I don't know if there's a team I'd want to see less. And I have no hard feelings.
Funny.
I could not do.
Love Mike. How do you not love Mike Tomlin?
The Steelers are on my bad list still.
No.
Oh, you guys, it was like 1,000 years ago. Get over it. Mike Tomlin wasn't even there.
I could not do the Russ discourse though. Like, and I have nothing against him. I am generally pro Russ, but oh my God, that would be exhausting.
But the beauty of sticking it to Sean Payton, oh my God.
It wouldn't just be Sean Payton that was getting it.
It would be for me.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
So I want to thank you for the voicemail, and I've got some more that I'll play in Hawk Blogger Mornings probably tomorrow. If you want to leave us a voicemail, it doesn't have to be about the Seahawks or even about football. It could be about any topic. It could be a joke. It can be just an observation. Record it on your voice memo app on your phone, and then attach it to an email and send it to me at brian@hawkblogger.com. I reserve the right to not play it. So you're not guaranteed, but so far we have a pretty good hit rate. So fun to do. And you never know what show it might turn up in. It might be Robert Mays. It may be Mike Sando. It could be Jeff Simmons. It could be Real Hawk Talk. So feel free to drop those, and I will do my best to play them. All right, guys and gals, we should talk about the Bills game, obviously, since we're getting towards the end of the show. This is a huge game, and it's a game where you've got undeniably one of the best teams in football and a team that has legitimate Super Bowl aspirations. The Seahawks have played two teams that fit that category. Hasn't gone so well. So at the same time, the Seahawks did have the ball with a chance to win or take the lead in the fourth quarter of both of those games. But I don't think anyone left those games feeling like, oh yeah, the Seahawks are right there. So before we talk about predictions, Dayna, what do you think you need to see in this game? And what do you think you are going to see in this game?
Well, I would love to see a competitive game, right? Like I want to see some back and forth. I want to see the defense being to hold, Allen in the pocket, not letting him take off, not letting him run, like some good solid line play there. The offense, I want to see the consistency that we saw last week. I want to see more of that. I think K9 is going to be huge in this game. I think that especially if DK doesn't play, the weight of the whole game ends up on Ken Walker's shoulders. And so seeing him to respond to that would be great because God knows he's done it before, right? I don't have a great feeling about this game, even though I know I watched your show this morning, Brian. You went on, you were talking about how he hasn't had any interceptions and he's due for one, Allen is, and I agree. And I would love to see that because, it's my favorite play of football. But I really just feel like I had this game as a loss when we did our predictions at the beginning of the season. And so what I want to see is that continued progression, getting better and staying competitive with these teams that really are top tier in the league.
Nathan, I like Dana's kind of like wanting the fight back and forth. I think that kind of imagery of like reminds me of in the Lions game. It felt like the Seahawks offense was like absolutely punching back, and their right hand or whatever your weekend is just hanging by their side, paralyzed and just getting pummeled. So they were only punching with one hand in that game. What is it that you think would represent? Like, forget the score for a second. What would represent like a positive step forward for this team against the Bills?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really good test to see, are they ascending? Are they fixing their problems? Because, the Bills are a pretty good running team. And so Seattle's run defense is really going to be put to the test. It's not a game where I need to see them look dominant against the run because the Bills are good at it. But at least not looking like they did during the 3-game losing streak would be great, would be good progress. And then, they can get after the quarterback a little bit. They have some pass rushers that'll put this line to the test a little bit more. So, just seeing how consistent and how well the line can hold up is going to be really huge. And so there's no shame in losing to this Bills team, but it can't feel like the Niners and the Lions game, right? Like they have to look like they belong on the same field for the most part. So that's what I'm hoping for, is just that they can look respectable in these areas that have been huge problem areas for them, especially the run defense, because the run defense feels fixable and you're now adding pieces to it. And so if you go out there and just absolutely get ran off the field again, that's a huge concern for me.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And look, I think there's kind of a spectrum of what would be acceptable for me. On the low end of that spectrum is something like the Falcons game, where if you look at the underlying numbers, the Falcons had a lot of success offensively. And the run game was very effective, and the Seahawks run defense was not that much better. It was better, but it was not that much better. But they didn't have any of the explosive plays that resulted in touchdowns. They just had these kind of field changing plays that they were able to contain, and they wouldn't have to allow 14 points, but that would be 20 to 24 points. That would be a low end of acceptable. On the high end of acceptable, that would get me excited, would be that the actual front line, like the Seahawks defensive line, is disruptive and causes real pressure and real problems for Josh Allen. Even if Josh Allen does his Houdini act, which he can do, and he makes some big time throws, if he's running around and he cannot get comfortable in the pocket, oh, my heart's going to be happy about that. I won't be happy if it's a loss realistically, but I'll be able to look at that and say, okay, this is the team that I want it to start to become. The other thing that I'll be looking for is can the secondary, if Reek Willing can play, can they hold up? I think this is, I almost did it for you again, Nathan, because, it's my favorite bit. I asked Mike McDonald today about, hey, the Bills, all their passing touchdowns this year have come against man coverage. Josh Allen obviously can run more and scramble more against man coverage. So why do people play zone? Like, what's the reason? And he's like, well, I didn't know that they had thrown all their touchdowns only against. So I was like, I was going to play that for Nathan, but I didn't. But the point being that he went on and talked about why man coverage, like there's reasons you need to do it. And you need Reek Woolen in that game. You need, Devin Witherspoon in that game. And these are some really talented receivers, especially Shakir and Cooper. I want to see them like hold up in that situation. And so them doing that together, like that would be fun. That would be the high end. It's also, guys, it's supposed to rain.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. Okay.
It's supposed to rain potentially like a decent amount. I don't know. I haven't done research yet on how these folks perform in different weather conditions. Just curious, before we get to predictions, who do you think that would favor on the high end? Who does that help more?
I don't really. I don't really. I mean, this Buffalo's Bills team, they're used to playing in 10 feet of snow, right? Like weather isn't usually a factor in my head about the Bills. It's like they can play anywhere, but at the same time, rain is very different, And so I maybe it's PTSD, but I have worries when Seattle plays in the rain.
Yeah, I think Geno is a much more finesse. I think everyone's a more finesse quarterback than Josh Allen is. So like if it gets messy and the rain really messes stuff up, like I definitely would put my money on Josh Allen just doing something stupid and brute forcing a play to win a game. So yeah, I would think it would definitely benefit the Bills.
Can I ask you guys a question really quick? I'm sorry to keep, I know we're at the end of the show, but I'm really curious on your guys' take here. So let's say DK can't play. So I said, I think it falls more than on Walker's shoulders, but I also have this thought. So everyone likes to dump on Noah Fant lately, and I get it, but he actually had a pretty decent game last time. He made some good plays. I was impressed more than I had been, I guess you could say, in the past. So who do you think, if DK can't play, in your mind, what would be the logical there? Do you bring in more Bobo? Do you bring in more Bobo, more Fant, a mixture of the two? Because you can't solely rely on JSN and Tyler. You need some beefiness against this team.
Nathan, you want to answer?
I think you have to see. I think you have to see if Bobo can stretch the field with some contested catches. Like, can you get some fades, but some back shoulder catches? Like, he's not going to just beat teams over the top like DK is, obviously. But between him and JSN, you're going to have to find ways. Like, JSN can get behind a defense. I don't really think Tyler can anymore. And then, you're going to have to see what Bobo can give you as some kind of facsimile of DK. I don't know that Grubb is really going to throw a ton of multi tight end based passing attack out there. But with I'm a big AJ Barner guy, so I'd love to be wrong about that.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say I'm going to keep predicting it because eventually I'll be right. Certainly Bobo will get some more snaps because that's just logical, but Laviska Shenault, I think, is another guy that you expect to see more of. And one of the things I found when I was watching the Bills games is they're a little vulnerable on screens and on wide, like quick passes to the receivers. If you have Bobo and Shenault both getting more time, you're going to have a more physical receiving core than you're actually typically used to having. And I think that could make sense. I think you also, like, Chenault's a guy that's a yards after catch guy. And so I think they could use him in screens. They could use him in some creative ways. They could use him in some end around. So that's where I think there might be some interest. McDonald mentioned Derek Young, who has not been getting many snaps. He would get some, but I don't think he'd get a ton necessarily. But I think, like, getting back really quickly just to the rain thing, I feel like that would probably mean this was going to be a closer game. Like it maybe would reduce the probability of a blowout, I guess is the way I would put it. And the thing that again, I haven't looked deeper into the numbers here, so I don't know. I could be totally off. But the Bills are a more reliant pass team this year than they've been in past years. They are a good run team, but they're not as good as they were last year for some reason. And if they're like forced to be a little bit more run oriented, I think they also are not a great run defense. They have allowed a ton of explosive plays, especially on the ground. I think Connor Williams is like really gaining steam. I think he had his best game against the Falcons, and a lot of the run yards that the Bills have given up is right up the middle. So all that's making me wonder if like it's probably just a push, but like I think it would just mean less points most likely, and maybe more turnovers.
I want to say I do think DK will play though. I do think he'll play.
It's sure seeming like the signal's getting sent out. So. It seemed like he's going to give like if it's raining though, I'm like, put that guy in bubble wrap, you know, Fair. Like it's probably, this is a tough game to win one way or another. Do not risk your best receiver.
Agree. Yeah.
How do you feel about Connor Williams snapping in the rain?
He's been great with snaps. His issues so far have been more his communication with Gino. They've been off in the operation a couple of times. That's been interesting, but thank goodness his snaps have been, you know, knock on wood, they've been okay.
I was gonna say, don't jinx him now.
I know. Well, who knows? All right, let's get to predictions. Dayna, I'm gonna have you go first. What is going to be the final score of this game?
Oh, no one's going to want to hear it, but I think the Bills are winning. But I do think it's going to be close. I do think that being in Seattle, now knowing about the rain, which I didn't know about before, I agree with you. It'll be lower scoring and probably more head-to-head. I think the Bills win this by probably a field goal or less. So I'm going to say 23-24.
Okay. Nathan.
I was going to go something kind of similar, 28-24 Bills. I think even if things were looking good for, like, if we hadn't, you know, had that terrible 3-game stretch, like this is still a tough team. And, you know, you get them at home. So hopefully that tips things in Seattle's favor. But I think the Bills are just going to be a little bit better. And it'll be close. I really hope they look so much better though. Like they just look like I said, that they belong on the field, and that'll make me really happy.
I think though, one interception run back for a touchdown changes this game.
Oh, sure.
But which way does it go?
I think that Seattle, if they can pull that off, if they can pull a couple interceptions, sure. But if they can take one back, I think that's how tight this game might be.
Well, let's be honest. I said this earlier today, but the Seahawks were on the lucky side in Atlanta. I was watching that game, and it was palpable. It was like, okay, they just picked up a defensive pass interference flag. That doesn't happen, even though it was a bad call. Like they did what? You got a roughing the passer on a 3rd down incompletion, and kept like there's a lot of things like the balls went to players as opposed to empty space. Like things worked out in that game. And I think we all feel like it rarely does. So yeah, if they're on the positive side of luck variance, hallelujah, I'll take that. And to your point about returns, the Bills have allowed a kickoff return for touchdown to DJ Dallas, of all people. They are one of the worst return coverage teams, both on punt and on kicks, maybe special teams. Everyone doesn't like D. Williams. I get it. I think he's been contributing every time he returns a ball the last few weeks. So he had a big return against the Falcons. Who knows? But all that said, you know, I feel a little bit of a responsibility to not always have, you know, like have everybody pick against the home team. And I like to pick the Seahawks to win. But I also just I picked the 49ers to win. I picked the Seahawks to beat the Falcons. I'm trying to be like genuine about these things. And as much as I want to pick the Seahawks to beat the Bills, this is a team I think is legitimately going to contend for a Super Bowl. And I don't think the Seahawks are ready to legitimately contend for a Super Bowl. I don't think it's a 70-30 type of situation in terms of probability that the Bills will win. I think it's like 55-45, which feels good. but I still got to go with the Bills to win this one. I think I'm going to pick the Bills 27-23. I think Josh Allen's going to be the guy where we're just like, oh my God, how, like, we're playing good. We're playing well. How is he doing this? Because he's just capable of things that are not normal. And I think you just got to recognize that. I think they're a very good team. And I think adding Amari Cooper makes them even tougher. So
I think too, but guys, if they play well and they keep it tight, how encouraging is that against the Rams? Like it just sets up the next couple of games so well for me in my head. So
yeah, and if you can only win one of these next two games, if they beat the Bills and lost to the Rams, to be totally honest, that would be a bigger problem. They need to win the divisional games. They need to win the NFC games. Big picture, maybe beating the Bills would be better, but like for this year, you definitely want to be beating the divisional opponents. All right, everybody. Anything else, Nathan, before we wrap? All right. Thanks to all the thousands of folks that tuned in. It's always great to get everyone together in the community for Real Hawk Talk. Thank you to Dayna O'Gorman for coming back from her trip and spending her time with us. You can find her at Dayna OG on Twitter. Nathan Ernst, the man who is so much taller than you'd ever know because he's always low in his window on the screen. He is like 17 feet taller than me, but we look like we're similarly built on this show. But Nathan, at Nathan11, make sure you follow him. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. Tune in tomorrow morning, 7:15 a.m. start. Going to be an early HawkBlogger mornings as I meet with C. Mike Spinmove, Griff Sturgeon, to talk about his triumphant analysis about the linebacker position. We're going to let him take a victory lap about Jordan Brooks and how they should have never let him go. We're going to have the whole thing because honestly, he's put up with a lot of shit, sometimes from us. And he deserves, yes, even from you guys.
Well, sure, but are you going to let him talk about Cody Barton's game, or is that too far?
He won't like what I have to say about it. I mean, there's not going to be punches pulled, but yes, we will have a genuine. Griff and I have a perfectly open conversation agreement. So appreciate all of you for sticking with us. Make sure you give the show a like and click subscribe. Head on over to patreon.com, sign up, get access now to the Slack channel and all the audio versions. There is an exclusive interview with Byron Murphy I did today you will not want to miss, and it's up there for Patreon members. So you can get access right now if you join at patreon.com/HawkBlogger. All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a great rest of your night.